Come here.
Good, I feel like I had to make a speech. This is great.
So Stu's sitting there, he's going, did I retire? Or well, I guess I should tell you why we're here. We've invited your partners, some of your friends, in Don's case, all of his friends.
And then some.
We paid a few more to come to give toast to you, to thank you for your years of leadership to Gordon and Rees. No, you're not retiring, and you can't retire. And so it's our way of just saying thank you, to get together, to share the night, and enjoy each other's company, and say thanks. So let's give them a round of applause first.
Here, here. Shocked. And Don, as usual, is our spokesman.
You're right.
Well, this is fantastic.
Speechless.
Hopefully we're not late.
I see Bill Campbell back there. I can't believe this. This is
I got to tell you, this is the first time that Stu Gordon has been speechless.
Well, this is just wonderful seeing you. Hey, even Doogie's back there. Susan, look at that. Don, everybody, Crony. God,
Chick here?
Great. This is great. Let's go see everybody.
Chick's not here.
Okay, so here's the plan.
Let's go drink some more.
Cocktails for now. We'll have dinner very shortly. We'll have a beautiful dinner. And then at dessert time, we'll have a little speech making. I'm sure we can have our golden-tongued friend here.
Yeah,
So
once
come on
he
in
gets his
and say hello.
composure back.
I didn't think of my 40th Bill?
Hey, Rees, how about a beer?
It is a total surprise. I told Marilyn that you called up, and I was disappointed that you were coming here instead of going over there.
My club number is
Yeah, right. Well, I might use it now.
I think the Bulls are ahead by 6 points.
Yes, Kathy and I were
God, this is a great moment. Is this a speaking part?
I'll be here. I'll be there to greet the guests.
I'm not sure you're going to see me a lot. I much too young. I've never seen anyone so large. Never seen anyone so handsome. Well, I better not.
Yeah, but you know what? You know, it's a big lunch. You know, all the... I got this. Are you like, I love it.
So is this voice activated? We sure are happy to be here. It's one of the great old-time parties. we've ever been to. Thanks for including us. We'll be back.
Am I here? My heart's in
Why do we have to wear this kind of thing?
Yeah, I mean, it must be very serious. What the clothes would you I'm looking forward to that
Nothing better.
Why don't you sit down now?
Before we start with the festivities, I would like to thank a few people. Maybe I should introduce myself for some of you who haven't met me. My name is Mike Lucy. I am the managing partner of the firm. I am the successor to Stuart Gordon and Don Rees, I guess in a few words. And a funny thing kind of happened on Memorial Day. I was mountain biking on my new mountain bike, and I took a header over the handlebars, broke 3 ribs. And I come walking into the office the next Tuesday. I'm walking like this. The patient turns to Carol and goes, "My God, he even walks like that." So,
Notice the light went out.
I do have some thanks to give to some people. I'd like to say that I put this whole thing together. It was my idea, I guess, in the first instance. But the dinner you had, the location, the flowers and everything took a lot of work and a lot of dedication from some people, and I'd like to just recognize them. Susan Rowe and Evie Packer. Susan, could you stand up over here? Evie, come on. Their work is really just been tireless. And Evie, I said, Evie, I'm going to say something about you, say thank you. And she says, no, don't do that, don't do that. I said, well, how come? She said, well, I don't want to look like I'm sucking up to the big magic. And I said, well, that's what Stu said it's all about. I hope you enjoy the wine because Megan Kaplan's sister got it for us wholesale. At cost, I should say. We only have 46 cases, so go easy. Now, I should have had some prepared remarks, but it's been just a hellacious week. But fortunately, I brought a speech I gave on the Fair Employment and Housing Act. So I'm gonna get that out. There are a lot of people who want to get up and speak. It's kind of like a piñata, you know, where everybody lines up to whack. This is a special moment, and we got to meet some of Stu and Don's friends, and the first thing they said to me was, "Why are we here?" And so we're all clear about that. This is our opportunity really to say thank you for 23, 24 years of leadership, dedication, and service to both Stu and Don. Their leadership, their loyalty to the firm, and their dedication has been exemplary. And from my vantage point now as managing partner, I have a fuller appreciation, I think, of the trials and the tribulations. And so it's a special day even for me. And so I know we have some mementos. These little napkins, I don't know if everybody saw these right here. But I can tell you that we've got Stu's in blue, Don's in red. And these are special things to me.
Cardinal.
Cardinal.
Bears! Go Bears!
So I'm going to keep those and treasure them all my life. We have a long list of people who want to get up here and take a whack at these guys, so I'm going to try and move this along. our common link, of course, is our friendship for Don and Stu. And my friendship with Don and Stu began when I started as a clerk at Gordon and Rees. It's the only law firm I've ever worked at. And I started to work actually for Stu Gordon as a summer clerk. And I remember my first day having my first introduction to Stu. And he has this kind of image, and I think it evolves from his self-image. And what can you say about someone's self-image, about a guy who was born on Christmas Day? But
It does have a direct correlation.
he is a man of vision, though. He is a man of vision. He had the vision to make me managing partner. That's an inside joke for you, Ron. But when I started Gordon Rees as a clerk in 1980, I think there were 10 lawyers. I remember showing up my first day, sitting in my little room, thinking, God, he's the managing partner of 10 lawyers. How does he do it? And he has this busy practice. So I remember I had to go in to talk to him my first day, and I stood outside the office, his office, waiting by the door, and it was closed. Well, actually, it was half open. And people are flying in and out of the office, and he's on the phone, and they're handing him things, and messengers are running in and out. And, I was kind of intimidated. And his secretary, Barb Lujan, sat right out in front, and he'd be yelling. We had an intercom system, but he didn't. Barb, call Kevin Harrington. I need an IME, Do this over here. And Barb would go, yeah. But it was intimidating. And so I walked in, and I knew I had my audience was Stu. I practiced my genuflection. I figured I had to get in, get out real quick. So things are flashed, and I'm standing there at his desk, and everything's going on. And I had to talk about some arcane issue of law. I don't remember what. And finally, he just stops. And he looks at me and says, what do you want? And I froze. And I said, and his eyes are beaten down. And I said, and my mind went blank. I could not remember what I was there. So I said, hello. And he looks at me, they're kind of shaking his head. He goes, hello, Stu Gordon. And he gave me a big two-handed handshake. He said, you are my new law clerk. Welcome to the firm, And that was very nice. And I was ushered out 30 seconds later. So that was pretty fun, I must say. But even then, I can remember during my first few days at Gordon Rees, he talked about his goals. Actually, in that meeting, he talked about his goals. His goal that day was to get 9 quick billables and a 2-mile run. But the truth be told, Stu did have a vision and he did have goals. You go to these seminars about how to run law firms and how to manage businesses, and they talk about strategic plans and visions and mission statements and all those kinds of things. He never talked that talk, but he did always have a goal and a mission. And his goal was to be the best he could be and to be better today than he was yesterday. And it was simple. And if you followed that goal, everything else kind of fell into place. And it did. We started out, there were 10 lawyers. We were small. We were kind of doing insurance defense, kind of the low end of the lawyer spectrum, to be honest. And we built it up to a firm 10 times that size today. And it was through that kind of determination, that belief in himself and his firm, that brought us where we are today. And, he's one of the hardest working people in San Francisco. And I know that because I've seen him, but principally because he told me that every day. But the growth has been really tremendous. And so it's a simple vision, it was a direct vision, but it worked. And we, the lawyers here, the partners here, are here to honor him, are the beneficiaries of that business, or that vision, I should say. I don't think anybody can really appreciate how hard he works. We all know Stu Gordon's a hard-working guy in the law firm, bills the most hours, brings in the business, and all those kinds of things. But it really wasn't until I became managing partner that I became aware of a whole different spectrum of pressure, of responsibility, of dedication, and it's difficult. And he weathers the storms. He keeps his eye on the prize all the time. And he says, this is where I'm going. If you want to come along, stay up with me. And we all have. And those who haven't have washed out. But those who are in this room have done it. We've all succeeded by it. And so I just like to say that I'm a better person, I'm a better lawyer for having met him, and we're a better firm for having had him here today. So thank you. I should say I tried to do some homework to...
Wait, you made Brian cry.
Which part? I did some homework on Stu because I thought you might know some facts and figures, those of you who may not be familiar with his career. And I looked him up in Martindale-Hubbell, and actually I didn't know some of the things that I found in Martindale-Hubbell. He's a Bolt Hall graduate from 1965. Congratulations to you on that one. His student body president. He was in the top 95% of his class. He was not on the Law Journal, but he was the founding member of the University of California Bolt Hall Tanning Journal.
The Tanning Journal. Tanning.
Stu took the bar in 1966, and he set a record for having completed the bar examination in record time. And of course, anybody who knows Stu knows he moves quickly. And that's a record that stood for 2 years until he broke it again in 1968. So in closing, I guess I should say about my dear friend that probably the best advice that he ever gave me was that when you get into a tough issue, impossible situation, no way out, there's no easy answer, kick it over to Rees. And in many ways, I guess, Don is the perfect complement to Stu. They're kind of the yin and the yang of the law business. I guess that makes you the yang, Don. But where Stu is, he's rushed and he's hurried. Don is deliberate and thoughtful. Stu goes on the attack. Don picks you up off the floor. Stu went to Cal. Don went to a real university. We had to get that one in, didn't we? And as I mentioned, my early career basically was mostly with Stu. I law clerk for him. I was an associate under him. And so I really didn't get to know Don very well as an associate, and my relationship with Don really didn't start to grow, I think, until I became a partner. And to be perfectly honest, I thought Stu kind of did it all. I thought it was Stu's law firm, Stu did this, Stu did that. And it was really only when I became a partner that I got the full measure of Don's participation in the law firm. And he is the complement to Stu. I'm convinced that there's a synergistic effect at work there, that the two of them are greater than each ever could have been by themselves. And Don's contributions have been more subtle. He's the last person, I think, to trumpet his own strengths, accomplishments. And really, from us who are partners in this firm, there isn't a partner in this firm who hasn't benefited directly from Don's effort at business promotion. He's mentored every one of us. He has guided us. And as I mentioned, Stu's model is to take off and you can keep up with me. Don would sit you down and he would talk to you. He would explain things. We'd work out the issues. We'd talk about the pros and cons. And in the end, I learned a lot from Don. I learned a lot about being a lawyer, but I learned a lot more. I learned a lot about being a man. With Don, family came first. He talked about his kids. He made me realize that as tough as things get now and then here in the practice of law, as demanding as it can be, in the final analysis, you have to be true to yourself and you have to be true to your family. And that's a lesson that's precious. It's absolutely precious. And I'd like to just thank you personally for that vision. Thank you. I do have one Don Rees story, though. As many of you know, Don is very active in the FICC, the Federation of Insurance Corporate Counsel. And it's an organization of lawyers and insurance companies, major businesses to get together and talk about legal issues. And Don has moved steadily up the hierarchy, and he was kind enough to ask me to join the FICC. So the first year, I think you come as a guest. So he asked if I'd come as a guest. And he said, I'd like you to come. It's in Naples, Florida. There's a program. And I said, that's great. And at the last minute, he said, I'd like to give a speech on the first day on some arcane issue of insurance coverage law. Okay, all right. Okay. Then the next day, he said, oh, you know, the guy from Washington can't make it. Can you speak on Washington law, too? Yeah, sure. Just keep it on me. Keep it on me. So Don was the program chair. He was in charge of the legal portion of the seminar. And so both of my speeches were on a Wednesday, I think it was. And it was a lot for just a brand new guy to speak to 600 people in these big audiences on something I knew absolutely nothing about. And so, you know, finally that afternoon it got over. And he said, what are you going to do tonight? And I go, oh, I'm going to go out and get blitzed. He said, well, I want you there first thing in the morning because I'm going to be walking around, you know, making sure that everybody's there. And it's important that you're there for Gordon Rees. I'll be there, Don. You can count on me. So true to form, I go out and get blitzed. You know, the next morning, Jenny's waking me up. Yeah, it's 7 o'clock. You've got to go to the meeting. So I go to the meeting, and I'm sitting way in the back of the thing, and Don's walking around like this. And he's supposed to be taking questions from the crowd. So people are asking questions, and he's walking up to the dais and talking to the speaker. And I'm back, it's like this. So finally, after an hour and a half, I'm out. And I'm dazed, and I'm dreaming, I'm in a wonderful spot. And I wake up, and there's his face right here. And I was like, oh my God, I just pissed off Don Rees. And all of a sudden he goes, oh, it was funny. I well, I could go on and on. And I've got a million stories, but you know, everybody else in this room does too. And so I've talked to a few people who have asked me that they want to come forward and talk about Don Rees and Stu. But first, we got some business to take care of. We are trial lawyers. We try cases, and we win cases. And when we win cases, we are acknowledged by our peers. And we have a winner in our room tonight, Tom Crosby and Jerry Crosby. Tom just got a defense verdict, and the jury was out in a very short period of time, I understand. And so congratulations to him. And we have a couple more lawyers in trial right now. Jewel Bass is in trial. And Mike Pietrzakowski is also in trial in a very big case. So Mike, good luck to you. So what I'd like to do now is just to introduce a few people. People want to come up and say a few words. I've kind of made a list of people who've told me they'd like to speak. But we get to the end, if I haven't mentioned your name and there's something you'd like to say, particularly if it's derogatory, you're absolutely welcome. Our first speaker is probably what we would call the consigliere to Gordon and Rees. If a law firm could have an advisor, it would be Don Crump. So without further ado, I'd like to produce our consigliere here, Don Crump.
Not
everything.
But I was having a good day today until about 4 o'clock this afternoon. Mike called and said, you know, you're going to follow me. But on one hot August afternoon, I got a call from the Reeses, the Zackers, and the Gordons to announce that they were starting their law firm. This was in the early 70s, and with the blender running in the background, and just being in the early afternoon and just having started at brunch, they launched their firm. And they told me that they were going to start Gordon and Rees, and that they were going to announce to Ron C. Fields, their former managing partner, that they were they were leaving the following Monday, and of course I knew immediately that this wouldn't be the first time that a man named Rancia had been rejected. They did this, and over the years we've gone through, you know, the normal victories and trials and travails, but you know, given that this all started in the early 70s, even those of us who never inhaled couldn't imagine some of the things that occurred. Like the Bengal tiger at the beginning of a Gordon and Rees Christmas party, who decided to mark his territory, the entryway to Gordon and Rees, with about 6 gallons of effluent fluid from all the rest of Gordon and Rees's fine products. You know, who would have imagined in the early 70s that a firm run by Don Rees would represent the largest maker of breast implants? and also, you know, it's also been said that Stuart Gordon has done some of his best work on his back. Well, that all happened in a hospital bed, in his office, after surgery, just recently. But, you know, who imagined that this law firm would grow to a firm that did over $30 million in volume last year? It's really pretty amazing, and a tribute to these two guys. And I thank the Reeses and the Gordons for this wonderful ride and for guiding us all along. It's been a pleasure the whole time. So thank you, and many years of continued success.
In a hospital bed to his office so that he could continue to work while he's recovering from back surgery. And I happen to have a young associate, Mike Bruno, who was just starting out. And since he lived near Stu, he would pick up Stu every day, and Stu would hobble into his car, and Mike would take him to the office. And Stu brought him in, hey, you see my bed, isn't that a great deal? And Mike kind of shook his head. And he came down to my office and said, what is with that guy? In keeping with our vein of tall lecturers, we're going to have the tallest of our lecturers here now. Dan Hurling, who's been a partner of ours for many years, who I actually seduced over to come from another law firm to join us, and he's been here ever since. Mr. Hurling?
Well, actually, Mike seduced me from the United States Navy. Because I was a prosecutor for the United States Navy over at Treasure Island. If you all remember, we used to have a Navy here in the Bay Area. I had an interesting experience. I became a member of Gordon Rees back in 1983. In those days, we had about 7 partners. And I interviewed with every partner, but Don Rees and Stu Gordon.
He kept us in the closet.
That's right. And I thought that was interesting. So later on I found out, because if you probably know Don and Stu, they're very big sports fans. Don, a very big sports fan of Indiana University and then Stanford, and of course Stu at Cal. And I have to tell you that where I went to school, I played both of those schools in basketball and beat them both. And I don't let them forget that too often. But despite that, I got a job. In seriousness, I've always told people, since my time here, that the firm would never be the same as if it was called Gordon and Gordon or Rees and Rees. And I think to echo what Mike was saying is that they complement each other so well that we've learned, I know I've learned, I've learned a lot lately in the last couple of weeks dealing with some issues with Mike as well, that learning from them and how they complement each other makes the firm what it is. And so I know there's a lot of frivolity tonight and jokes, and we can spend a lot of time making jokes about Don, but you know, that's and one other thing about Don, you know, it's interesting, this is actually interesting. We have a client back in the East Coast. That's right, I'm an early guy. So we have a client back in Jersey City, New Jersey. And they invited us to dinner, and they told us it was at an Italian men's club. Which, I'm from Philadelphia, so I immediately read that as, this is mafia. And so we saw a lot of white limos running around. But the significance of that is that, and this is why I think what's the strength of Don Rees. We had dinner, and it was a mixed group of people. and there was a young African-American guy. And I'm saying to myself, what in the hell did Rees have in common with this guy? After 10 minutes, Don and this guy were the best friends. And I think what I learned from that, watching that, was that Don goes beyond what we know him as. And Don can deal with every person, every situation I've ever seen. And so, despite the fact that I give Don a hard time about sports and things like that, but I learned a lot that night, and I think that's what's the strength of the firm. And you might feel that the firm is going through some tough times now. We just think just the absolute opposite. We think this is a great firm, that we're going to continue to go forward, and without Don and Stu's involvement, I think that, and continued involvement. I was kidding Stu tonight. He said, "Is this a retirement?" I said, "Well, here's a watch." But it's my University of Dayton beating Cal watch. So,
Hey, I want that.
yeah, I know you do. But, and I don't want to get too maudlin, but I do think that the folks of us who work with Don and Stu day in and day out, actually, and I know myself, I started here as a prosecutor in civil law. What's that? Kevin Harrington, who's he? Now, the other thing is, I have to tell you, Dr. Harrington's also worked on my knee, and that's why I don't play basketball. I knew I was in trouble because they said, "Well, go get a second opinion from Kevin Harrington." I said, "Well, this guy says nobody's hurt." So I knew I was in trouble. But tonight is a really special night, and we're really happy that Don and Stu are not going to, as we say, retire anything farther from that. In fact, I expect that both of them be in the office tomorrow morning.
Dayton has had a winning season in 32 years. They didn't win that
Since
year.
I left.
Beating Stanford was the last game they won.
If Don and I may make a prediction about the NCAA Final Fours next year, you'll see some Cardinal red in the final game. I would like to introduce Chuck Custer now, who's another partner in the firm. We call him Chuckles. I was one of the people who hired Chuck. I interviewed him, and I'd like to apologize in advance for his speech.
Come on.
Can't wait, dude.
This is very interesting because I haven't talked to Mike at all about talking to them. I hadn't prepared anything. I had no idea that I would be speaking. I have a lot of stories. I'll try to make them brief. Now, I was sitting there thinking, because literally it occurred to me, I was even going to ask Mike, maybe I could speak at the end of the program. So I was trying to figure out what I was going to say. I've spent a lot of time with Stu in the last, 7, 8 years, I guess. I think probably as much as anyone else in his office and saying what he does. And it is amazing. It's truly amazing. But I was trying to distill it all down to, what I feel about Stu. And it all started probably the first day I was at Gordon Rees, many, many, many years ago, 1984, I think, as a clerk. And I had to drive in from law school, I was in Sacramento, I had to drive in, and I had to get there real early because the traffic came.
6 or 8.
And it always pissed him off because I was there before him. I know it. I had this desk that was all the way down the hallway. And he'd come in about 7:30. He looked at it. He had no idea who I was. But I was all the way down the hall, and I was always there when he got there. Well, only a couple days a week. And then later, as I started to grow and the practice, and I had an office closer to Stu's, and I know to this day, and he knows too.
I started coming in earlier.
I always got him. I know. He walks by my office. He does it. Hi, Chuck. How you doing? I know he's pissed off. Anyone that knows Stu knows what I'm talking about.
7's as early as I go.
Now he always beats me at the other end. Now he's always there, and I really think that his commitment, I think, has impressed me. I always tell people that he's the only person I know who works harder than I do. And you need that. And I don't think that's true. Mike works hard. There's so many people in here that work hard. But you need that. You need someone to create an example. And he's been a wonderful example for me in so many. I could go on. But let me talk about Don. I have a Don story. I met Don about 10 years later, I think. Practice again with Mike, probably when I became a partner. But I've been getting actually closer and closer to Don. Although I will say, the one thing about major difference between Don and Stu, major difference. I'm a UCLA fan, so I don't really fit in this whole mix. I'll bet anybody a lunch or a beer on any UCLA event. So Don has bought like 30, 40 lunches over the last 10, 15 years. Although he's been getting me lately. Stu, I have a hard time. He tried to bet me $1 once. He's got this $1. But Don and I have been doing some marketing together, and finally I get to go back to New York and meet some of his clients, and I get to hook up with Marilyn and him.
You go to great dinner.
Right, exactly. Well, that's where I'm going. So we go, we're at this great, I would have never got to stay at this hotel. I would have been at the Motel 6 down the road, but they're staying there, and I get in there. Okay, it's great. I'm only going to be there a couple nights. And so I'm meeting the Reeses, and I'm thinking, okay, I'm in New York. I've been there a couple times. I went to a nice dinner, and Don's got a place to go to dinner. Okay, it's the Armory. And I'm thinking, the Armory, what's the Armory? It's got to be something nice. So we start walking down the street, we go to this place, and it's a military barracks. What's wrong with that? What's that? You know that place? It's in New York. It was built in like 1850. It's this 2 or 3 or 4-story building it's big enough inside where they have like military marches. And I'm in the middle of this place, and we go up, and we find a little restaurant, and there's this bar, and they're having this retirement dinner, or just the guy's like 97 years old that they're giving this tribute to. And we kind of break in and on and have a drink, and then we go into the little next tent, I think, and have this prime rib dinner. And then we're walking out, we're walking back, and Marilyn tells me, Chuck, I'm sorry. She said, I'm really sorry. She said, I know it's your only day that you're here, but I knew Don was going to make me go to this dinner, and I needed to sacrifice you. But she owes me big time. It was Friday night. No, I have to say, I've been here for a long time. I come to work every day, and I like it. And I mean, you can't ask for more than that. Thank you.
I thought it'd be a good time to hear from one of the Gordon and Rees alumni, Carol Rees, no relation to Don Rees. She spells her name with an E. Actually, you do too. She has 3 of them. Carol was a member of our firm, a partner for years, worked very closely with Don. She married her husband, Luther Orton. They moved down to the peninsula, Menlo Park. She tried to struggle with the commute for years, had 2 kids, and finally decided to start Orton and Rees in Menlo Park. So I'd like, without further ado, to introduce Carol.
Well, I knew I was meant for Gordon and Rees when I heard about the firm from Jim Castles, and I thought, well, I'll look them up in Martindale Hubble, and I looked up Stu, Don, and I saw that Don Rees had gone to Stanford Law School, Indiana University undergrad, and I, Carol Rees, went to Stanford undergrad, Indiana University Law School. This is karma. We belong together. I was a member of the coverage group at Gordon Rees for over 10 years. During that time, Don was my boss, my partner, my mentor, my ally, my confidant, and my friend. Still my friend. A lot of you know how hard it was for me to say goodbye to Gordon and Rees, to be home full-time with my kids. I have to admit that coverage opinions have not been beckoning to me. But I would like to tell you, there are a few things that I really do miss since I've left Gordon and Rees. I've missed having my mid-morning chats or late afternoon chats with Dawn about this, that, the other thing, FICC, Stanford, IU, what's going on at the firm. I've missed receiving Dawn's phone calls from around the country or in the world, wanting to know how that coverage opinion was coming along, or what was going on with this client or that client. I have even missed Stuart and Dawn's banter about Stanford and Cal at the anniversary party. But what I really have missed most of all is being part of the day-to-day life at Gordon and Rees, the camaraderie, being part of this wonderful firm that both of these two men have built, along with many of you. And so I'm proud to say that I'm part of the Gordon and Rees family. I'm honored to be here tonight and say thank you. Good job. Well done. Cheers.
I have to say Carol was one of my best buddies at the firm, and I miss her a lot. We had a lot of good times together. We've got a candle burning in the window for you.
It's not that bad, Michael.
She's looking very thin and fit. I think the odds are coming back in the near term. We have a very distinguished guest here tonight who's agreed to say a few words. Jesse Choper is the former dean of the Gould Hall Law School, current assistant football coach at Cal. He's looking forward to a very promising season. And he's going to be out of work at the end of the season, I think. Typically. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce Jesse Choper.
We always look forward to promising seasons. Look, this is an event in honor of both Stu Gordon and Don Rees. And I want to talk mainly about Stu Gordon. You know, the test, really, of a lawyer's lawyer, and I think Stu is one of those, is the extent to which he or she is recognized within the trade. And I know that Stu has represented some of the greatest law firms in Northern California, Pillsbury, Madison, and Sutro, Heller Rem. I think that's a great test. But what you probably, and I'm sure almost all of you here are familiar with that. But Stu is also not simply a lawyer's lawyer, but a client's lawyer. That's probably less known. But the only way that I can really compare him is to that great Midwestern physician, Percy Hunziker, who was known as the Albert Schweitzer of Chicago. And what they said about Dr. Hunziker was, if he had a patient, who couldn't afford the operation, well, he'd touch up the X-rays. Well, someone said, say something funny. But I came to know Stu, as Mike indicated, because of my association with Bo Bowles. I came in the summer of 1965. Stu left, having graduated. And I think he was actually in the class of 1964, someone said, but that's neither here nor there. But I do want to say something quite serious for you about that. The class of 1965 at Bolt Hall is one of the, in my judgment, and I think that's generally acknowledged, one of the two most prominent classes that the law school has ever had. The other one is the class of 1927, which graduated such people as Roger Traynor and Ray Peters, both on the California Supreme Court, and Warren Olney, who was one of the most prominent lawyers in the state of California, and himself was a great appellate litigator. But in the class of 1965, I mean, it numbers among its members a former Chief Justice of this state, a present presiding Justice of the Court of Appeal in Orange County, a former chairman of the Republican National Committee who elected 3 presidents, Reagan twice and Bush once, the executive director of the American Bar Association, the third-ranking official in the Justice Department, the Assistant Attorney General in charge of the Office of Legal Counsel, the Corporations Commissioner of the state of California. I just assembled these, a couple of minutes before this, the president of the San Francisco State Bar, and I should say the leading or managing partners of some of the great firms of the country, like Robeck, Flagler and Harrison, the managing partner of the Howard Weiss firm, of Gibson, Dunn and Crutcher in Washington, D.C., and I really the senior partners in virtually every major law firm in the country, from Honolulu to New York City. Stu was the president of that class of 1965, and 33 years ago, that says quite a great deal about this guy. But perhaps the major achievement of all of these. Did someone say something funny? He was the president. He was the president.
It's only 12 years old,
Wasn't it 23 years?
You're pulling his cover.
Let's see, 60, 90, whatever. But the major achievement, I think, beyond being the president here, is that he, along with Don Rees, is the builder of one of the great litigation law firms in the state of California. A firm of well over 100 lawyers, firm whose client, represented by Gordon and Rees, won a unanimous decision, Supreme Court of the United States, this last term. And look, Stu, cannot be held to credit for all of this. I mean, Don, where is he? Where is he? There he is. No, look, I don't know Don as well, and largely because he didn't go to Bolt. I mean, he went to, as Mike indicated, he went to Stanford, and Don, I want to say that's a fine law school, and don't ever be ashamed of it. But I want to say that of all of these truly illustrious graduates of Bolt, the class of 1965, I know as a fact that there is no one who compares to Stu in this respect, in building one of the great law firms in this state, great litigation law firms in this state, from the bottom, along with Don, the only one in my experience over this period of time is a fellow who went down a peninsula and joined a small firm called Wilson Sonstein and Larry Sonstein in the class of 1966. But Stu and Don, built this from the very beginning, and without taking a thing away from Larry Sonstein, I mean, there was something to be said about being in the right place at the right time. Stu and Don were not in the right place at the right time. They were right there, nose to nose, head in head, with the great firms of this state. So I would close by saying that Bolt is really very proud to have Stu as one of our graduates and one of our alumni. And Mari and I are, really very proud to have both Stu and Florianne as as good friends of ours. So all the best to both of you.
Jesse.
Thank you, Dean Schofer. You
Jesse.
know, he talked about the two great
Jesse.
classes in the Stanford Law School, which, you know, are
Chatty
Calvin's.
guy.
But Don Rees's class of 23 was still. Well, we've heard from some lawyers, we've heard from some educators, and I thought it might be nice to hear from a client.
Oh, my goodness.
So, let the word be known to the rest of you lawyers, no more client jokes, okay? There's actually one in the room. John Linneman is here. John is a client of the firm. John is a friend.
Be nice.
So I'd like John to come up and say, John?
The applause is not worth the
No way.
I have to say, I really didn't know why I'm here tonight, because I didn't understand Mike's promotion. I really didn't. I didn't have a clue. He doesn't have a clue either. Most clients don't, right? What I thought was supposed to happen tonight from my participation was to talk to people about what Don Rees does. Because, quite frankly, I don't know the other partner. I don't.
It's hard to believe.
I don't spend enough money. So what I was prepared to do tonight was to tell you all the things that I like and dislike about Don Rees. I hear about everybody else except Don, and his name is on the masthead, right? So I even wrote a list. All right. First of all, Rees is the most incredible optimist on the face of the earth. We all agree with that? All of your friends, partners? Yes. He has for years thought he could have a retirement case. A case that he could try somewhere, maybe Coronado. He'd never have to work again. He'd just do it and say, you know, I'm going to do it. I'm going to be there. Okay? Well, we know that wasn't going to work. The next thing is, he is always going to try and find a client that won't try and negotiate a bill again. Excuse me? You haven't heard that before? Pardon me? Partners of Gordon and Rees? Excuse me? Okay. Second thing is, there's another thing that Don really thinks. He really thinks that Bobby Knight is going to win an NCAA. Once he wins it, he's going to go to the Hoover Institute, right? Stanford. Right? And then the worst part of all of this is that he's going to say, Marilyn, you're right. Oh, it's not going to happen? My understanding of the firm of Gordon and Rees is that there were two partners. And Stu, we really have met with a handshake.
Yeah.
Once. He's in the West. Okay. Don and I have done business for 15 years together as a client, friend. He truly is one of the nicest men in the world, and I think he is one of the two lawyers that I know that you feel bad when you tell lawyer jokes to. The rest of you people, talk shit. Anyway, Mike, congratulations. Thanks for the invitation. And Rees, you're a good shit.
Tell us how you really feel, John.
For white guys, all right.
I would like to introduce now the firm physician. This orthopedist has put more hardware and partners in true value. His name is Kevin Harrington. He's been associated with the firm ever since I've been there. And actually, I had a very recent incident where I had to deal with Kevin. As I mentioned at the outset of my prepared remarks, I was in a mountain biking accident. And this is a true story. I opted for the HMO option at the Gordon Rees Medical Clinic. So I come home from this biking accident and I get a ration of, as John would say, shit from my wife. And I stall for a couple of days. You gotta go see a doctor. You gotta see a doctor. So I think I got broken. So I call the HMO people. And they say, we have to see your primary care physician. And I say, well, I don't know who it is. And so that's the great thing about HMOs. It's so cheap because you never actually get any medical care. So I'm looking through the thing and I see my wife, she's put down one, and I say, it's Dr. Gupta. And they say, well, that's fine, but she's a gynecologist. So they finally assigned me a primary care physician. I call the primary care physician, and I now understand that they get paid like $7 a patient. And so they have an economic incentive for you not to come into the office. So I call and say, I'd like to see Dr. So-and-so. And they say, well, you know, we only want to see you if it's a problem we can deal with. I said, well, I really got this pain. So, have you gone to the emergency room? No. Can you come down and drive down to see us? Yeah, I think I can do that. Well, if you can drive down to see us, then you don't really need to see us.
He better be on our list.
So I said, I tell you what, you tell Dr. So-and-so that her senior partner in this firm has got an orthopedic injury, wants to see a doctor, and you just told him to come in 2 months, and call me back in 5 minutes. So, sure enough, 5 minutes, doctor, we'll see you, I'll see you tomorrow. It worked. So it really didn't go that well, because my primary care physician is a dentist. So I said, I'll see Kevin Harrington. He's an orthopedist. This is right up his alley. So I did. He saw me on short notice. Saw Dr. Harrington. He said, I'll get back to you in a couple of days. Went back that night. Said, Jenny, he said, did you hear? I said, no. He said, you tell me tomorrow. So I came to the office the next day, and their hand-delivered was a 19-page medical report. $1,000 bill, and a note that I'm a malingerer. So I'd like now to introduce the firm physician, Dr. Kevin Harrington.
My name is Aniwal Gupta, and I'm a dentist. I would appreciate if you would not take pictures because I am planning to write off this entire speech. The tuxedo looks very bad. Actually, I've been involved with Gordon and Rees from the very beginning. I noticed tonight at the cocktail party that there were estimates anywhere between 24 and 30 years that this group has been together. I think 30 years is for billing purposes. And in point of fact, I've been together 24 years, and I've really been there from the beginning. I mean, I remember seeing Don Rees. He was 6 or 7 years old. His his red and white shorts and high socks, and he looked exactly the same as he does now. The cherubic face and the white hair at the age of 7. I first met Stu Gordon in the men's room at the Cap MPT insurance company injecting his hip. Representing me, and it was, it was sort of a conflict of interest, I suppose. But I've noticed over the years, although I've treated primarily Stu, I've treated everyone really here, one way or another. I've treated Stu, and Stu has sort of had a progressive degenerative process until recently, and probably in the last 5 years, he's actually looked better. And this doesn't, really fit with this scientific, apropos of the dean, I am known as Albert Schweitzer of Mill Valley. And it didn't really make sense that Stu would begin to look better. And I started questioning him, taking a history as we usually do after doing surgery. And he mentioned to me that he had the L-tryptophan account. Well, L-tryptophan makes a lot of amino acids and very, stimulants of one sort or another. And so immediately I got more interested in that. And then he told me recently that he had the Wyeth account, which makes all sorts of arthritic medications, and then recently I've heard that he has the Viagra account. So I don't want to, draw any conclusions. But seriously, folks, I think Gordon and Rees, as I say, I've known them for, please. And they really are a dynasty. I think Dan Hurling is sort of the Dennis Rodman of the... Any of you who've seen the old Dayton game films with Dan and his pantyhose dunking, multicolored hair, it's natural, and it really is. Seriously, in the beginning I knew there were 6 lawyers. Musegian was one of them. Probably most of you remember Musegian. And now there are 412 or something, but they really are a dynasty, and I
Billing purpose.
salute you.
It's probably difficult to talk about Gordon and Rees without talking about one other person, and that's Gary Zacher. Probably everybody in this room has met him or certainly heard of Gary, and he's the third person in what Stu likes to call the Holy Trilogy. Gary is as we speak, on his way to Europe and couldn't be here, but he wrote me a nice note, and I was just going to read it for everybody on his behalf. To my good friends and great partners, Don and Stu, parentheses, I thought Don's name should be first one time. When it comes to Cal basketball, it's Milano and Gordon. When it comes to Indiana basketball, it's Knight and Rees. But when it comes to Gordon and Rees, it's Gordon and Rees, just as it should be. It has been a great run so far. Let's savor the major victories and championships along the way, and let's win a few more. All my best, Gary Zacher. I'd like to call now on a couple of people, actually a run of people who are my compatriots here at Gordon and Rees. We all kind of started together. We raised kids together. We passed the bar together. We made partner together. We now vacation together. We're as close as friends could be. And these are my Stu and Don, if you will. And at first I'd like to call on Tom Crosby, our trial lawyer, who just won his recent case. Thank you, Mike.
What the hell are we doing here tonight? I had a jury go out yesterday afternoon, and I looked at this morning that they were 9-2-1 on their first vote. 9 and we win. But I had to wake up at 4:30 this morning to learn that they wanted to give us a unanimous verdict. Last night I was home, and I forget about everything when I'm in trial. I said, Diane, is the party for Stu and Don tomorrow? She said, yeah. Do you have a babysitter? She said, yes. And I thought, come over, what the hell is this party for? Because I thought, Stu, you thought the same thing, didn't you? Don, you thought the same thing, didn't you? I'm still wondering. I'll tell you what it's for. For 25 years, you guys led the band.
Red wine.
I just left a 7-year-old, a 6-year-old, and a 15-month-old. Don, I'm sorry. You got to keep going. This party is to keep you going. Keep you going, Stu. 15 months. For at least 22 more years. Deal?
That's about as many years as we've got. 22.
So I didn't have a whole lot prepared, but I agree with Gary Zacher. I have not worked with Don. I have not worked with Stu, but Gary was sort of my mentor, and he is flying to Europe with his bride. So I'm going to go the opposite way, the Gordon and Rees way. Don Rees, I came up as a young partner, and Don and Stu would both tell you in a moment of candor, in a moment, they'd probably tell you anyway, that I would raise issues that I'm sure both of them wish I wouldn't have raised. And I know Don wished I hadn't raised. Don and I knocked heads a few times. But over these last years, I have learned so much about Don Rees and his ability to moderate very difficult situations. I have gained so much respect for you, Don, that I cannot express it. You have had such a moderating force on this firm, its growth, its abilities to sustain, to stay together, and to go on, that you deserve all the credit in the world for that. And I thank you.
Hear, hear.
Stu, you're a maniac. He does. He works harder than anybody I've ever met. But you know what? The one thing Stu has never done, which I always expected him to do, I always expected I'd go into a partnership meeting or whatever, and I'd have 1,900 hours a year, and Stu would have 3,000 or 3,200. I have never heard once Stu say, and mind you, I married my wife, Diane, who was also at Gordon and Rees at one point in time in her life. I've never heard Stu say, you need to work as hard as me. I've never heard Stu say, you need to do what I do. Thank you. But at the same time, there's not a partner in this room who hasn't worked harder, who hasn't tried harder, who hasn't done more, because Stu Gordon has led by example. Stu Gordon, at times, when things were real bad, has willed this firm to be a success. I would like to make a toast to Don and to Stu on behalf of myself, my wife, and my family, and thank you both very much.
Here.
Thank you.
Tom is right. Don has really been a moderating influence in many ways. Unfortunately for us, he's been a moderating influence on Tom Crosby often. I'd like to introduce our next speaker, Tom Packer. And Tom Packer really bleeds Gordon Rees red? Blue? Tom was a summer clerk at Gordon Rees. It's the only law firm he's ever worked at. He met his wife, Evie Packer, then Evie Wright, who was a paralegal at Gordon Rees. And I actually may have been one of the first people to realize that they were in love with each other. When we were at 601 Montgomery, I remember parking very early, because I'm an early guy, because like Chuck, I had to get in ahead of Stu Gordon. And we used to park in the Holiday Inn. And I parked in the Holiday Inn, and there were Tom and Evie coming out together. So we kind of walk out the door, and they stop. My wife will tell you, I'm not really sensitive to these guys and things. What are you guys doing here? And I remember at their wedding, wedding, Tom made mention of that fact, and I turned to Jenny and I go, what are they talking about? He still doesn't get it. But Tom is one of my dearest friends here at the firm, and he's going to be a lasting partner and friend of mine forever, I think, and I'd like to introduce him, Tom.
Well, thanks, Mike. I'm actually remembering back to my first days at Gordon Rees. I'm surprised that Mike has a job. Because one of my first memories is when I was a part-time clerk, being a student at Hastings, and I was in on a Saturday morning, and I was working on a case that Stu and Mike were working on, the two big guys and the actor practice and all that. And I was in Mike's office, and it was some case that Mike had gone to a deposition or hearing on, but it was Stu's case, but Mike was helping him out. And Mike was sitting at his desk, and Mike and I were talking about the case, and in comes Stu on a Saturday morning after his run and all that. He's just watching all that, and somehow Stu had found out that Mike had been talking settlement with his plaintiff's attorney. And Mike was just like, he'd been practicing like for 6 months. And Stu came in and said, what are you doing selling my case or this case or that? And I was right in between. Here's Mike, here's Stu, like way up here. And I was just, third year law student like that. And I'm saying, ooh, wait, this guy Lucy, he's not going to last. Well, Stu got his point across, and the case, I'm sure, settled or tried successfully. But as you can see, Mike has made it, and more so. But we're here tonight, obviously, to honor Stu and Don. And like Mike said, I've been here since law school, and since 1982, which seems like a long time ago now. Evie and I have 3 children, they're double digits, and our kids, Evie and Jenny, Lucy, have called each other whenever we've had children to plan the conception, because our kids are exactly the same age. We've really grown up along the way. But especially for the first more than several years at the firm, I've had the privilege of practicing with Stu, and many times been in a sprint. Even though Stu's a long-distance runner, it's a sprint with Stu as far as the cases we've defended and the cases we've handled. I remember actually, Stu and I, we've kind of progressed in many ways from defending a lot of medical malpractice cases onto altryptophan that Kevin mentioned before. And I remember one of the first cases I handled with Stu, a medical malpractice case, and I came up with this. Stu was in the middle of trial, and he needed a case, some research to come up with this case, and finally, after like days and days, I finally found it. And I got this great bottle of French champagne for winning this case, the Keene case, for Stu. And then after that, we had this great client representing the altryptophan cases, and every year they'd send us this great big case of Ridge wine, and thought this is great. When a case here, get champagne and wine here. And lately, when I ran a marathon a couple of years ago, it's kind of changed from champagne and wine to Advil. Stu represents American-owned products, and he said, oh, you should have taken Advil on this marathon. but Stu has been as everybody knows, a positive person in this firm, and a provider of opportunities, personal and professional. And it really has been an honor to work with Stu. And most of all, he's provided just a sense of humor and wit that has anybody who's had a chance to take advantage of it at all, whether through friendship or through just working with him professionally, has benefited from it. Because as you know, the practice of law has its ups and downs, but Stu has this optimism and this sense of humor. When I've been on conference calls with him, he presses the hands-free button, which means that the other side can't hear what Stu's telling me about the other attorney on the other line, and it's even with sticky situations, he's been able to find the most optimistic route and the way out and the way to benefit our clients. So Stu, it's been a pleasure to work with you and to benefit from being with you all these years. And now Don, I had not had a chance to work with much until recently. And Don and I, just this past April actually, tried or arbitrated this case together for a whole week. And of course we won. But Don has these, it was a great case for one of the world's largest reinsurers. And we had the honor of arbitrating this case at the Park Hyatt Hotel in a conference room there. But I'd never worked on a case with Don before, really, before this. But I think what epitomizes Don's role with the firm and his contributions to the firm was during the case, Don and I had worked really hard in this case. We were ordering pizzas late at night, and I was saying, Don, you can't go home yet, you can't go home. And North Beach Pizza was coming there every night, and finally we got to arbitration. And our client, the in-house counsel for the reinsurer, came out from Stanford, Connecticut. He was there with us every day. And we were in the third or fourth day of the arbitration, and we had a couple witnesses left. And I was going to take this one witness, and Don was going to take the next witness. And there were the other side's witnesses. And this one guy got up, and he was just on a roll. He was killing us. And he was just going on and on and on. And here was Don. Here was the panel of arbitrators over here. Here was Don. Here was me. And here was the client. And the client turned to me and said, Tom, I want the big guy. What do you mean? I want the big guy to cross it down with this guy. You guys do it. And so, me? No. I want the big guy. And Don has officially known the firm as the big guy. And sure enough, this client, and the large reinsurer, he wanted the big guy to step in at this moment and cross-examine this important witness who had suddenly given all this testimony we hadn't anticipated. And sure enough, Don, I said, Don,
They want the big
Don, they want the big guy. So Don, if he had suspenders, he would have gone like this. Don stepped right in, and we both did the case going up. He cross-examined this guy, made his points, and really whittled the guy down. I took the next witness that Don was going to take, and we eventually won. But from the client and from us in the firm, we think of Don as the big guy in terms of just his presence at the firm. And like I said, I hadn't worked with Don much until the past year or two, and come to appreciate just the stability and the solid base that he does add to the firm. And Don, I just want to say personally, that I appreciate working with you and come to appreciate your contributions to the firm. And both Debbie and I have devoted ourselves to the firm. Of course, I met her at the firm and married her. But the firm is our life, and our life is the firm in many ways. And both you and Stu, we were just overjoyed to have this night tonight. And thank you very much.
We want the big guy. That's going to go down in the American lexicon with Yo quiero Taco Bell. Tom alluded to this, and Stu Gordon was the master of the mute button. And in the heat of battle, we'd be in his office, and we'd be in this big exchange, and the plaintiff's attorney would be on some big harangue, and Stu would push the mute button. So, a few years ago, I was a young partner, and I thought, in this mold, for Christ's sake, I walk like him, I look like him. I thought I'd try it, so I had a young associate in the office, and we were on the phone on a conference call with a federal magistrate. Her name was like Geneviève Bugeaud. What's the accent? It was a French name, and she had a French accent. So she going on and on. So I turned to my mic and I watched it. Bonjour, tout le jour de And all of a sudden she paused. She goes, "Do you speak French?" That's the last time I tried to do that. One of the reasons that we're so successful as a firm is because Don and Stu have been tremendous money managers. They're cheap. Good for them. A brief anecdote about me and Tom. Tom's a year behind me from law school. And actually, I never told you the story. One time they actually gave me his paycheck. And this was my probably third year. And I opened it up not looking, and then I looked at the name, it's Tom Packer. And I realized I was being paid $10 a month more than I'm a year ahead of the guy. I'm in the top 5% of my class in the law journal. I'm a big dude.
According to Martindale Hubble.
So I don't think that's right. So I go into Don Rees's office and I say, I'm not one to gripe about these things, but I'm a year ahead of this guy. I've arbitrated a couple cases. I just finished a jury trial. I'm a year ahead. I think I deserve more than $10 a month. And Don said, well, why don't you talk to Stu about that? Well, I wasn't about to go into Stu's office. So I went to Gary, and
That's what I was doing.
and I said, Gary, you hired me, and I don't want to be a pain in the butt here, but let me tell you my story. And I kind of went through the whole thing. And he said, well, Mike, the degree with which we compensate is relative to the inverse proportion, of course, is allowed. And I said, well, that's all fine. I just want more money. And he said, well, let me talk to Stu, and we'll get back. So I didn't hear anything. It was probably 3 weeks.
Was that net or gross?
So one day, I'm just in my office, I get a call from Stu, and he says, can you get on and talk to me for a second? And that's Stu's M.O. He calls you cold, because he likes the quick dagger attack. And I walk in, and there's Don, and there's Gary, and there's Stu. And Stu says, sit down. And he says, well, we talk about things, and we're going to give you a $50 a month raise. Well, at that point in time, that was a serious amount of money for me. And so I said, well, I stood up, and I'd just like you to know that I really enjoy working at Gordon Rees, and your confidence in me. And Stu goes, yeah, cut the speeches. All right, get out. I kept the money. I'd like to introduce one of Don's friends now, Jim Hamasaki. And Jim has graciously agreed to say a few nice things about Don. He called me today and said that he didn't know any nice things to say about Don. So I said, well, think very carefully. And he has. He's agreed to speak.
To tell you the truth, I never thought I was going to get up here and speak. Not because there were so many eloquent lawyers, but frankly, I thought there were going to be a lot of surprise speakers, Bobby Knight, Bill Baxter, who was Don's antitrust lawyer at Stanford. Maybe, I don't know if you heard the story about the professional heavyweight boxer, but I thought that guy might come in and say nice words. And of course, Don's good friend Pete Wilson. I'm sure people are all coming, and I'm not going to watch the door, but let me just say a few things about Don. If you see him coming through the door, just give me the sign. I'm here, first of all, as a resident of the fair city of Lafayette, and there are others here from Lafayette as well. We're here to celebrate Don's success, the success of a good hometown boy. So you've done good, boy. You made us proud. You and Stu have done a fantastic job with this firm. You've brought it from a fledgling law firm to one of the top firms here in the suburb of Lafayette. secondly, as actually a former client and a lawyer, I want to give you a little of my perspective of Don's biggest talent, what has been mentioned here, and that's his rainmaking. And we're not talking here about moisture from the clouds. We're talking about bringing the business in. And Don has done an exceptional job in that respect. And I was kind of the one of the test cases many years past. It took him a long time, but at one point, up until last year, I was general counsel of a small company called Tax Bell. About 50,000 employees, lots of legal problems, and probably at least 2 or 3 suits where we were the defendant brought every day. And of course, this whetted Don's appetite. And over the course of many years, he used all kinds of, I thought, really creative means of trying to get some of our business. Among other things, he told me that when he was in law school, Bill Baxter, who, as you know, broke up the Bell system, told him that it was really anti-competitive of a corporation to keep the work inside. I mean, I went to law school too. I didn't go to the farm, but I went to a law school. And I thought, that didn't sound quite right. But Don had a lot of other subtler means. Don knew, for example, I liked beer. You have good beer here tonight. And I noticed as the years went on, I kept getting Coors Light, some sort of watered down beer. I could never get real beer at his house. Well, eventually, this wore me down, and in fact, I gave some cases to the firm. I don't remember how many cases we gave Stuart on. I can tell you that we gave more defense tort litigation to this firm than we gave to Pillsbury, Madison, and Sutro, which up until that point had been virtually our outside counsel for a number of years. All right, you got it. I can tell you that we were ecstatic with the work. The results were great, and the service was great. So we couldn't have been happier. It was a great team. Don brought the business in, and Stu and others did the work. I was to learn that Don's reputation as a rainmaker was not just for stateside clients. I mean, this guy has international appeal. So first of all, I heard of his work in the famous island of Nauru. It's on the Pacific, big, big island. Don handled a case out there and became a personal friend of the king of Nauru. I don't have time to get into the details, but Don can tell you that. Maryland was also quite a rainmaking extraordinaire. But that's all hearsay. I can tell you firsthand, because I was there, of experience a couple of years ago where Don invited me to one of his luncheons where he was going to demonstrate his rainmaking techniques. He actually invited me to participate. So we met this guy. This was a potential client from Japan who didn't speak any English. What was the guy's name?
Is it Jim or John?
That's the guy. So we were going to have a lunch, the three of us, and so Don expected me to really start. So I said konnichiwa. Good afternoon. Asked him how his health was. Very good. We talked about sushi for about 10 seconds. And then I flamed out. I mean, that was So the rest of the lunch, I don't know what Don said. But this guy, Mr. What's-his-name, he must have felt like the Emperor of Japan. I mean, Don treated this fellow well. We were laughing all the time. We didn't know what we were laughing about. But Don cemented the relationship. And I mean, that's the key thing that he has done. And I can tell you, I tried to kind of resurrect myself at the end of the lunch. And I said, this guy is an outstanding lawyer. Ben Ghosh used the word for lawyer. Make sure this is authentic. And I said, he's sort of the El Nino of rainmaking. The guy, of course, didn't understand me. I left him back with the sushi. So he said he really understood this. He liked the fact that he was dealing with a guy, the El Ninja.
What a great
I've got a lot more stories to tell you. But I have to, today when I was asking my wife, Nixie, what should I really say about Don? Because there's a lot of really good stuff. She said, well, just follow the KISS principle. If you know, some of you know the KISS principle. For those of us who deal with the KISS principle, it's an acronym for Keep It Simple, Stupid. She uses it in a different way. She says, keep it short, stupid. But you're not going to get any kisses later on. I'm going to put away all the rest of my stories. But I do want to say to El Ninja and to Stu, thanks to you, you guys have created a very successful firm. And you've earned the respect of your clientele and the legal community. So I offer my congratulations to both.
As I mentioned, we're trial lawyers, and I wanted to introduce now a couple of lawyers at Gordon Rees who are in trial right now, Jewel Bass and Mike Pietrzakowski. I'll first call on Jewel to come up. Jewel is in trial as we speak. It's her third trial in a row, which means she tried a case, ended on Friday. On Monday, she was in case number 2, which went to Wednesday. On Thursday, she was in case number 3, and she's still in it. So that's impressive. Even for trial lawyers, we have to be pretty admirable with that. Jewel, thank you.
Gorgeous, dynamic, entertaining, brilliant, athletic.
You're embarrassing me. Cut it
Sensitive, compassionate, kind, forgiving. Are those descriptions of Marilyn and Florian or what? I'm glad a couple of the other speakers brought in bathroom and shit because I've spent the last 3 weeks cross-examining 45 plaintiffs, males, on their bathroom habits and how many times they have bowel movements. This is a case involving an alleged real video camera in a men's bathroom, and we're being sued for invading people's privacy.
Gordon and Rees?
Anyway.
Bathroom, I never knew.
We represent the owner of a beautiful building, and I'm in Santa Rosa commuting every day, Sonoma Superior Court, and there are 3 defendants and my co-counsel, one who represents the investigator who we hired to stop this vandalism in the men's bathroom, and my other co-counsel who represents the property manager felt that I, as a woman, would be much better cross-examining 45 male plaintiffs on how they go to the bathroom, how many times they have bowel movements, and it's always amazing to me how men at the very appropriate times defer to women lawyers. Anyway, so I've had to kind of switch gears in terms of just having finished my closing argument yesterday and waiting for a jury to come back, and also being reminded that today was the day. As I came in this morning with all my stuff, I've heard Stu whiz by me, and I said, I haven't seen you in ages. And anyway, that was it. Stu and I go back a long, long time ago. Our son started kindergarten in town together. In those days, I was in the district attorney's office thinking that I was really doing the true work in society. And when I got tired of that and had my second daughter, Stu constantly would see me. We lived on the same block, and said, Jewel, anytime you want to come down to Gordon Rees, there's always a place for you, even part-time. And Mike, all I can say is, you're lucky I didn't, because I'd be managing partner. But I did come back going to do with the rest of my life. And Stu and I have a wonderful mutual friend who reminded Stu that I was not at home taking care of my daughter, and he was looking for trial lawyers, and here I was. But I didn't know I was going to work for Stu because I got a call from Gary Zacher telling me that they had heard through the grapevine that I was looking about going back to work, and was I interested. At that time, Gordon and Rees had 62 lawyers, and I thought, that's a hell of a big firm. I wasn't really interested, but he said, come on down. And I was very fortunate to interview with Tom Crosby. And Tom and I hit it off really well, really a good meeting, and this was the man that I was going to work for. And that time were whining and dining you, trying to sell you on Gordon and Rees, and they sent me off to lunch with 3 really cute guys, Jim Castles, Tom Packer, and Casey Clow. And I thought, this is not bad. And I thought, great, Tom was it. They extended the offer, and it was just the year of the earthquake when they didn't have the anniversary party. They kind of combined it with a Christmas party. And when I went to lunch with the 3 guys, they kept talking about me working with Stu Gordon. I said, no, it's Tom Crosby. And they said, no, it's Stu Gordon. I said, no. I interviewed with Tom Crosby. I like Tom Crosby, and that's the guy that I'm going to work with, because I heard all these stories about this maniac. And of course, I come to the Christmas party, and that year, for the first time, Stu, I think, was deathly ill and couldn't make the office party. And I saw Susan Rowe, and I said, Susan, there's a mistake here, because the guys keep talking about me working for Stu Gordon, but my understanding is I'm working for Tom Crosby. And she says, no, he really needs you, and you want to work for him. And I said, but I really don't. I want to work for Tom Crosby. And of course, I didn't know at that time that everything you tell Susan, she goes and tells Stu. So then I found out, thank God, that Stu found out Jules didn't want to work for him. But anyway, that was the best thing that happened to me.
Thanks a lot. You don't know.
I could not have found a better mentor. I've been very, very lucky. I'm not going to give my vintage, but it's been very, very hard for a lot of women in my position to get in the position that I find myself in today. I've been very, very lucky in having wonderful, wonderful mentors. And one of them, Stu knows, was Dan Weinstein, and the other person is Stu Gordon. You've heard all these wonderful things about him. I can't add to that. One of the most wonderful characteristics that I was raised on and is very dear to me is loyalty. And I can't imagine having any more of a loyal friend than anyone could have in Stu Gordon. I love him, I'm loyal to him, and I thank him from the bottom of my heart for everything that I have today. I'm so happy at the firm. He's just a wonderful, wonderful man. Stu. That I noticed that Don had with Carol Rees and Sarah Thorpe, because Stu was always too busy to sit down and have lunch. He doesn't do lunches, he's always out there jogging. The only time that I would really have a one-on-one conversation with Stu is when we're actually in the car driving to an airport to go and visit a client, go to an important deposition, and usually I'm saying, Stu, please slow down, right? You still need me. But I always envied that wonderful wonderful relationship with that Don had with the women in his group. And at Christmas parties and office functions, I would try to get there and try to start talking to Don and get to know him. And I thought, this is why I'm really not in coverage, because this man is so intellectual, I don't know what he's talking about. But in the last couple of years, I've gone out of my way to actually have lunch with Don, and he's just been wonderful to me. Everything you heard about him from people that have known him longer is absolutely true. I value his guidance, and I look forward to many, many more years of guidance from Don. And Don, all the best to you, and I love you too.
Try to do as a firm, as part of our strategic plan, is to expand into different areas of the law. We started out with insurance-based work, and moved into coverage and into business transactional work, pharmaceuticals. And now Jules trying this case with 45 men in their bowel movements. So it's nice to know we're moving into intellectual property. I'd like to introduce the second of our lawyers in trial, Mike Pietrkowski. Mike is a triple domer. He has his undergraduate, his postgraduate, and his JD from the University of Notre Dame, South Bend, Indiana. He's in the middle of the trial, so if he launches into his closing statement here, you'll have to please forgive him. Mike?
I promise it'll be very short because I have to use the bathroom. I may not be alone. There's one. There's one person we haven't really talked about much, and that's Mike Lucy. We all want to thank you, Mike. You did a great job. And I keep hearing about this terrible bike accident he had. He injured, you broke several ribs? It is very difficult to put a bike on the back of a bike rack. Very dangerous to do. So, Jewel, Stu, and a number of other people, they're really trial lawyers. They try a lot of cases. I'm in trial now. I probably won't be in trial again for another 10 years, particularly when you wait and hear the result. But several years ago, I was in trial here in San Francisco. And I was in the process of picking the jury, where you get to ask questions. And you want to find out whether these people can be fair and impartial. Or so that's what we tell them. We want to find out who's going to vote for my side, who likes me and who's going to like my client. And one of the things you do is you find out whether they know anybody from either side, and that includes the law firm. So we're asking questions on the other side. The plaintiff's lawyer is up, and he asked this gentleman, very well-dressed, distinguished-looking gentleman, "Sir, do you know Mr. Pietrkowski, or do you know anyone from his firm?" "Well, yes, I know Mr. Gordon." "Well, how is that?" "I've had some real estate dealings with Mr. Gordon." Immediately, the plaintiff's attorney said, "Your Honor, we've got to go into chambers." We all rush into chambers. He asked, "What's up, counsel?" "Well, he has to be excused from this jury. There's no way he can sit as a fair and impartial juror on this case." The judge looks at me, says, "What do you think, Mr. Pietrkowski?" I said, "Well, Your Honor, could I ask one question of the juror before we make that determination?" So we go back out. I said, "Sir, I'd like you to ask you one question. Those business deals, were you on the same side as Stuart Gordon or the opposite?" He says, "The opposite side." I said, "Your Honor, can we go into chambers?" So needless to say, I dumped him off the jury. But speaking of Don Rees, what more can you say about somebody who brags about being from the state of Indiana? When I started at the firm 15 years ago, I was not from San Francisco. I'm from Toledo, Ohio, not necessarily the mega of culture. And here I came to San Francisco, all by myself. It was my first day on the job. I was living down in the marina, typical yuppie type of thing to do. And I'd catch the bus down to the financial district.
Well, I knew the office was across from the pyramid. That's really all I knew. So as I'm riding the bus and I see the tip of the pyramid, I pull the line and I get off. Well, I'm at Washington Square. Not too close, but that's okay. I'm early enough, so I make my way down to the office. Of course, it's your first day, so you're the first one there. And I'm in the lobby waiting, and on the 11th floor of 601. So I knew right then that I was on the right team. And the same with Stu. You want to be on the right team when you're with Rees and Gordon. And I've been very privileged and honored to be a member of that team and to have you two as our captains. I know one word in Polish, and it's appropriate here, and that's dziękuję. Thank you very much. And I hope to spend many, many years with you guys in the practice of law and in our friendship. Thank you.
Mike was our starting point guard and did a great job till Harrington got on him.
Pantyhose.
I'd like to introduce another physician. We seem to be overburdened with lawyers and doctors here tonight. Dr. Tannenbaum? He's gone. Is he gone?
No,
There you are. Okay.
She's gone.
Come on. Mike was weird.
I've actually heard a lot about you. Well, I'm glad they were finally able to get you into administration. I've been hearing about it for years. It's been quite some time. And Don, I've known Stu for a little less than 10 years now, which means in about 5 years from now, I'll start to get to know you. I'm really looking forward to that. I've written a pretty pathetic poem here, ode to Stu, from some of the friends that are sitting around here for Stu, that have really been out of his professional life. You can really tell that I'm very thankful to be in the medical profession and not a litigator. Stu Gordon, you have been a mentor and friend for me for almost a decade. For your partner's 25 years at a great firm you have made. In 25 years, it is hard to believe all you have done. Gordon and Rees, John and Tom, landing Florian, real estate, not to mention all the cases you've won. Despite your many jobs, extracurricular habits, and routines you do not lack. Running Ferrari Carano, Auberge de Soleil, and Plumpjack. Friends abound from the many varied things you do. Guardsmen, Bohemia, and Vault Law School, too. But it is what you do for your friends and colleagues that is truly rare. You bring us all together, keep us smiling, learning, having fun with each other. You truly care. And so, Stu Gordon, I raise a toast. I have to grab my port over here. For the next 25, probably 75 years, I'm sure you will make the most. I won't embarrass you with a kiss, so Dana, who's now left, this is how she will not miss. Yes, she did. And our babysitter, well, not much of this rhymes. And from the absolute bottom of my heart, I love you, Stu, and hope that an even better second half of your life will start. From Dana.
No tongue, no tongue.
I'd like to introduce Jewel videotape those guys. I'd like to introduce Jim Castles, who was at Gordon and Rees when I came to interview. And I'll never forget my interview. Gary Zacher interviewed me and was very high on me and said, "You want to meet these guys?" And Jim Castles is going to love these guys. So we went to lunch, and Jim and two other guys interviewed me. And Jim was talking about his big trial, and they were talking about the trial. They did not say one word to me during this lunch. Finally, I said, shut up. So then I said, right in the middle of the lunch, I said, well, you know, I'm in a trial practice class, and I won my mock trial. And he goes, oh, that's great. So I went home thinking, I just blew it. I blew the only job interview I got. Gary Zacher calls up and he goes, Castles loved you.
Didn't interrupt us once, and he had a BLT, I think. Memory serves, I'm not sure. A couple of comments. Just, I'm going to be quick because I'm late in the night. I know everybody's probably tired, like I am. And there's been a lot of wine and port and other good things done, so I'm going to be real quick. Jim, first of all, where's Jim? There it is. The price of Lafayette real estate has probably gone up by about $250,000 based on your comments, because I think 2/3 of the room is going to look for houses. Acknowledge that, first of all. And Marilyn, the big guy. You be the judge. I just want to talk a little bit about when I first joined the firm, because you know, when you think about relationships and stuff, it's always easiest to go back to when they first start, because I think that's always an important time in any relationship. And I can remember when I joined Gordon & Rees. I'd been out of law school for a couple of years. I'd been in another law firm. I wasn't terribly happy there. Heard about Gordon & Rees from Skip McCown, my partner, who had worked with the same law firm that I had been at and left a few months before, and called me up and said, this place is great. You know, come on over and take a look-see. That was back in 1978 or 1979 or something like that. So a long, long time ago. And I went over and interviewed and talked to Gary Zacher, who you've heard about, who I'm going to comment about in a second. Stu was on vacation at the time. I think he was, I don't know where, Europe or somewhere. Met Don, and Don was the guy that I was ultimately going to work with, and knew who Bobby Knight was, and knew who Steve Alford was, and so as far as Don was concerned, that was okay. I passed the test. And ultimately, you know, I accepted the job and came to work. About 2 weeks later, showed up, first day at work, and Gary Zacher, who I'd met during the interview, spent most of my time with, who introduced himself as Gary Zacher, came to work, you know, and Gary said, look, I'm going on vacation, and for the first 2 weeks that you're here, I want you to handle my files. And so this is what your indoctrination at the firm is to work on my stuff. And then after I'm back, you'll go to work for Don. And I said, fine. And so Gary left that day, and I sat down at Gary's desk, Gary Zacher, and I started looking through the files, and I'm looking at these letters, and all the letters are signed P. Gerhardt Zacher. And I don't know about the rest, this is sort of a Gordon & Rees show, but I don't know about the rest of you guys, but when I'm looking at P. Gerhardt Zacher, and I'm figuring this guy goes by Gerhardt, I'm wondering, what the hell is the P stand? Anyway, so a couple of weeks go by, and you know, Gary comes back, and Stu comes back from vacation, and the first time I met Stu was at a softball game. And the firm was really into sports, and we had a softball game. And I remember being out in the outfield, and I'm stretching and sort of loosen up, and this guy rolls up, and he taps me on the shoulder and says, hi, I'm Stu Gordon, you know. And I look at this guy, and I'm horrible with names, but I'm great with faces. And if I've met somebody when I'm about 9 years old, it stays in my memory bank, and I could be, you know, 45, 50 years old, and if I see that guy, I'm going to remember. And so he introduces himself, and I don't know the name, but I'm looking at this guy, and I'm thinking, I know this guy. I don't know where, but I know this guy. He's Stu Gordon. He runs this law firm. I've joined this law firm. What's the deal? And so my mind starts racing, and during the game, you know, I'm trying to figure it out. For the next week, I'm trying to figure it out. And I'm figuring, this guy, I probably saw him in court handling a really big case. Or maybe I saw him on the cover of, like, the Recorder, handling a really big case, or something. It's got to be something like that. And my mind's going, and it's going, and it's going. Well, back in those days, when we started out, there were only 6, 7 of us, 8 of us, back at that point in time. We worked in the Rust Building. And the Rust Building was one of those buildings where you could actually open the windows, unlike the buildings we now have. And I'm sitting at my desk one day, and this won't mean a lot to a lot of you people, but for those that know, they know where I'm going with this. And I've got the windows open, and I'm sitting at my desk, and I'm working, and the cable car goes by about a block away. I hear that noise, you know, clang, 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 and all of a sudden it hits me. It's my Simone guy. And the rumor was on the street for years that the residuals from those commercials kept that firm afloat. So we really got up and going. So anyway, so I worked there for a few weeks. Gary comes back, and I finally start working for Don, who was the guy that I was ultimately, supposed to work for. And Don right away throws me into litigation that I had not really handled. Very sophisticated construction type cases, a lot of money at stake, very, very sophisticated. And we start traveling all over the place. We're going to Denver, and we're going to Los Angeles, and we're going to Houston, Texas, and so on. And we're traveling together. And that was when I got my first inclination. Mike and others have spoken about this, about Don's propensity to watch the buck. Because we had a consultant on one of these cases who had in his contract that he always flew first class. And so we're flying, I can't remember from where to where, but we're flying somewhere, and I'm really involved in the case. And the consultant says, I'd like to work in the airplane, but I got to fly first class. And so we're at the airport, and I said, Don, what do you want to do? And so Don says, well, you got to work with this guy in the airplane. That makes sense, so go ahead and fly first class. But watching the buck, Don doesn't fly first class. He stays back and coach. The entire flight, we finally had to get the stewardess to step in and cut this up. Walking up to that little curtain. He goes through and he's looking at it. What are you guys having? Hey, it was terrific. And I learned a lot, and it was a wonderful experience. And as Mike, I think, pointed out earlier, in the course of working with Don, you become more of a family member than you do just sort of an employee. And I remember days when Don would come into my office and sort of say, come on, we have a site inspection for document production or something like that we had to go look at. And we'd get in the car, and I didn't know what was going on. I'd get in this car, and we'd drive somewhere, and lo and behold, we'd drive up to a school, and I'd say, what's up? And we'd walk in, and his son Matt was going to play basketball. He wanted me to get his kid a scholarship, I think, to college. And many nights at their house having dinner with Don and Marilyn, and just really feeling like a family member. And it was terrific. It was absolutely wonderful. And it got to the point that I felt comfortable enough with Don's kids to just talk to them about, kind of what it was like to grow up in their house. And so when Joanna was in high school, I had a conversation with her because I wondered, Don, we all know, is a pretty conservative guy. And I thought, what's it like to be Don Rees's daughter? It's pretty tough. I mean, no matter who you bring home, is this guy going to be okay or not okay or whatever? So I asked her one night, I was over there having dinner, and Don and Marilyn were doing something in the kitchen, and Joanna went over, and I said, hey, Joanna, what's up? You got a boyfriend? What's the story? And she said, it's tough. She said, no matter who I bring home, it doesn't work. And I said, why not? What's the problem? And she said, I bring these guys home, and one guy's not tall enough. And the next guy I bring home, he doesn't have blonde hair. And the next guy I bring home, he doesn't know anything about Indiana basketball. And it goes on, and the next guy's not interested in Stanford. So it goes on and on and on, so I've never met somebody. And I said, never anybody? And she sort of thought, well, there was one guy. And she said, I brought him home, and it was fantastic. He looked like Dad, talked like Dad, he loved Indiana basketball, he was everything Dad was, and I thought it would be fantastic. And I said, well, did you go steady with this guy or what? She said, no, it didn't work out. And I said, why not? She said, my mom couldn't stand the guy. I'm proud to be partners with these guys, but frankly, I'm prouder that they're my friends because they're great guys, and that's all I have to say.
started as a clerk, came in for the summer, and he came up to me and said, you played softball? I said, yeah, I play a lot of softball. He says, all right, we're going to put you in center field. You've got to cover center, left, and right center. You got Michigan at left, and I can't remember what the lady person was in right center. And he says, we're pretty weak. And I said, oh, that's okay, it's just for fun. So then I literally walked down the hall, and there's Stu, and he says, you play a softball team? And I said, yeah, I do. He says, well, we take it very seriously here. We play I said, that's okay. So I show up for the first time we go out there, and I'm in center field. And there's Stu Gordon at first base, Don on the mound, Gary Zacher at second base, and Jim Castle's at shortstop. And so there's Don, and he gets into the plate on about 2 bounces. And no matter where it was hit in the infield, Castles would get the ball. In front of the third base, and then he fired to Stu, who dropped it. So I don't get a play for 5 innings. That's a I'm standing out there. Finally, one guy, because everybody figures if you put it on the ground in the infield, it's a guaranteed base hit. So finally, there's one big hit, deep right field. Michigan is asleep in right field. I'm burning back as far as I can go, as fast as I can go. I run and I leap in the air. The ball bounces off my glove and I fall to the ground, turn around, spin, hold the guy to a single. And there's Stu going. We never had a winning season.
And you joined the firm.
Ken Caldwell, still in the audience? Yeah, there he is.
Take it off.
There we go. Thank you, Mike. I'm a friend of Don and Marilyn's from Lafayette, which you've heard mentioned before. And it's interesting in this group, hearing all you people talk. I realize that we're kind of outnumbered. Everybody is lawyers or a lawyer's client. One of their doctor here, and then my fellow doc, who I haven't seen for a few years, who we trained together. Kevin and I actually attended the same illustrious school of training, and as his daughter so aptly referred to years ago, we were both orthopenises. So Mike had asked us to kind of reflect back about Don Rees and our association with Don and Marilyn and so forth. So Kenny and I were kind of talking about how we ever remember first meeting Don. And you guys have all heard all these stories about Indiana basketball, all this kind of thing. And our first memory of Don was probably at a party years ago. Somebody's house. It's late at night, early in the morning. And those of you know who Marilyn plays the piano unbelievably well. Every song you ever want to know, on and on and on. So we're sitting there kind of at the piano, singing and having a good time. And about that time, Don decides it's time to go home. And, so from across the room, you hear this melodious voice say, "Marilyn!" And we kind of look up and look over. And here's this great big guy standing there, and you're immediately impressed. A couple things. Number one, he's a big guy. He's a great big guy, and he has this commanding manner and commanding voice. And you think, geez, who is that guy? And then you look at Marilyn to see the effect. And the effect, of course, is Zippo. Piano like she's never heard anything before. So we realized at that point why Don was such a good lawyer. Sure. founder of Gordon and Rees, he realized early on that it was a hell of a lot easier to practice law than it was to talk his wife into going home.
who was one of the people I interviewed with at the firm, and has been here for quite some time. Like actually many partners, she came from Crosby Heafy. We have, gosh, 4 or 5. Gary, Tom Crosby, Jim Castle, Skip all came from Crosby Heafy, and have been here for quite some time. Skip.
Well, it's curious. I did interview Mike, and I recommended that we not hire him. But there are several things in my career that would suggest that I was always at the wrong place at the wrong time. Jesse Chopra mentioned that Bolt Hall is a very good law school, and Stanford's okay too. But I recall when I left the firm that Mike just mentioned in Oakland in 1979 and came over to meet Gary Zacher. And I interviewed, and I thought he was great, and I thought it was a little strange that we were in such a small building that had offices kind of down the hall from one another. There was no continuity whatsoever with this small firm of 8 lawyers, and I come from a firm with 60, where we actually had tenant improvements in the building and things like that, and then we went to the Rust building, and it was not exactly that impressive, but Gary Zacher was very impressive. And so he offered me a job, and then I was home, I remember, I had been interviewing a couple of places. One of the places I interviewed was the firm that Jesse Chopra mentioned, which is the Wilson Sonsini firm down in Palo Alto, which some of you who are not lawyers may not know, which is the highest profits per partner law firm in California.
The world.
The universe.
The week after Gary offered me the job and I accepted, I got a call from Harry Bremen, who was the fledgling litigation chair of that firm, and offered me a job. And I said, gee, I'd like to, but I've already taken this job with Gordon Rees. And I have to say that I'm really not sorry. Well, I kind of am. I wouldn't be here today, not because I was not working at Gordon Rees, because I'd be retired. And I'd be living on a ranch in Portola Valley with my horses. But one of the things that is kind of curious also is I got a call this afternoon from Mike Lucy. And I was actually not at the office. I was home trying to work because my 9-year-old had a sleepover last night with 4 of his friends, and chaos had reigned for several hours, so I was trying to take down the tent and put it away and then do some work at home. And I get this call from Mike, and it's on the voicemail at the office. And from the tone of the voicemail, I kind of thought that there wasn't going to be anybody that would say anything nice about Don or Steve. He said, you've been around a long time, and maybe, you got to say something nice. Would you like to? And so I returned the voicemail. I said, sure, I'd be happy to. Well, lo and behold, Mike must have made that call to a lot of people at the last minute, apparently. But as a person who likes to consider himself a trial lawyer, being sort of towards the end of this program, I hope this is the end of the program, I'm kind of looking like, this is sort of like a trial where the trial lawyer sits in the chair and listens to the trial that unfolds in front of him or her, and tries to think, what the heck am I going to say to the jury at the end of this trial? And I could say a lot of things about a lot of things that people have said to sort of bring all of this into context and bring some truth and reality to what these people have said. For instance, I've never met Dr. Caldwell here, but his associates have treated my son for several injuries that he has had already. Of course, Don Rees was the one that referred me to Dr. Caldwell, but of course, Don wasn't important enough for me to get Dr. Caldwell. I got some associate, I think he may have graduated from medical school. But he was good. My son is still, he's okay. Yeah, he's walking. But some other things that you should know about. I did come to this firm in 1979. I was, I think, 2 or 3 months ahead of Jim Castle. And the softball team that Jim referred to and Mike referred to was, I have to take credit for that because we had a softball team at the Crosby office, and we had 9 lawyers at Gordon Rees, 3 or 4 of whom, well, we had to get some ringers on our team. But Don Rees was the pitcher,
and Stu Gordon was the first baseman, and Jim Castles was the only one that really knew what the heck he was doing. And he did, in fact, play most of the positions. But contrary to what Mike said, there was a winning season. We did play in the playoffs against that venerable plaintiff's firm, Walkup, Downing, Stearns and Poor, I think it was called at the time. And they had a few ringers too, because they didn't have any more lawyers than we had. But the reason that you all should know that Stu Gordon takes everything seriously was on that given night when we were ahead by 1 run in the last inning of that game, and the bases were loaded, and James Michigan was in fact playing right field, not left field. And the ball was hit to James, and James caught the ball on the first bounce, proceeded to throw the ball into the stands. Stu Gordon turned to him, his partner, and gave him a look that would have melted an ice cream. It was unbelievable. And the thing that nobody has talked about, though, tonight, which is really the key to this law firm, and you should know this, and I hope it doesn't leave this room because it is a trade secret. That is, that when I started with the firm, when there were 9 lawyers, and shortly 2 or 3 left after that, because I couldn't stand working for either Gordon or Rees, we were basically, if the truth were known, we were basically sort of a low-end litigation law firm. The first case I ever handled, I had tried 1 case at Crosby, Heath, Roach and May, a medical malpractice case, so I thought I was a trial lawyer. And I came over to Gordon and Rees, and I'd been there 2 weeks, and I was deathly sick with some kind of ailment in my bed at home. My wife, Linda, and I were living in this little tiny house in Oakland. And Gary Zachary called me on the phone and said, "Skip, we got a trial for you. Can you handle it?" And I said, "What is it?" And he said it was a trial that Stu Gordon, and he was honest, doesn't have time for. And I said, "Fine, when does it start?" And this was on a Thursday. He said, "It starts on Monday." And I'd been there 2 weeks, so I certainly wasn't going to say, "No, I'm afraid to do it. I can't. I'm not prepared." So Gary brought the file over that night, and over the weekend I looked at it and tried the case. It was one of their bigger cases at Gordon and Rees. It was a rear-end automobile accident. And I think we lost $12,500. But the thing that you should know about Stu Gordon and about Don Rees and the reason that this firm is as big as it is and as successful as it is now, is that they took young lawyers and gave them the ball. They would not be afraid to give a case to a young lawyer who had tried 1 case and go see what he or she could do. And that is why this firm has been so successful. There are times when I've been in the room with Stu Gordon when a client would call and they would ask Stu Gordon, "Do you handle this kind of work?" And the immediate response is, "Well, of course we do." We've never had a case like that ever in this law firm. But within at least 20 minutes we can read a textbook and we know enough about the case to become experts. And what the real strength of this law firm is not that we are experts in intellectual property or we're experts in pharmaceutical cases, but we are hopefully experts in trying lawsuits. And we're experts in being able to do that kind of thing. And that's what we have everyone who is a lawyer in this law firm that's in this room today has learned not only from Stu Gordon but from Don Rees that we can do what we try to do, and we make the effort to do. Now there's one other myth though that I want you all to know is not true. First of all, Gordon and Rees, there is one lawyer of the 2 who is smart, and then there's one who is a salesman. Now, Stu Gordon is not a smart lawyer. He is a salesman. He is a man that knows how to get cases, knows how to try cases. Now, Don Rees, he's the intellectual. Don really doesn't practice law. He just sits in his office and gives people advice. He's been doing this for a long, long time. I remember the first day I met him, and the day I interviewed him.
Can I have a refund?
His office looked exactly the same as the day I walked in on Monday to have lunch with Don. Here's a large desk with at least a foot of paper on the top of it. Don is not an organized man, but he is a man that at all times would give everyone as much time as he or she needed to sit in his office and to tell that lawyer what is in his mind. And he is a very, very bright lawyer. And for all those clients that are here, you have hired a very, very bright lawyer.
And I've always enjoyed the time when I sit down and Don asks me these questions. I have no idea what he's talking about. And luckily I haven't worked for Don for a long time. It would be embarrassing at this stage in my career not to understand what he's saying. But it has been a real pleasure working with these two gentlemen, and I really do appreciate their ability to guide this law firm. I also appreciate the risk that they took giving me, Jim Castles, Mike Lucy, Tom Crosby, Chuck Custer, Dan Erling, all the people in this law firm a chance to screw up. And in most cases we did. Thanks very much, guys.
Okay, we're nearing the halfway point now. Academy Award. You know, Skip mentioned that look, and at the firm, we call it, from Stu, we call it the look. So, you know, Socio will come limping out. We have to hide that look. Patience knows it. I'll bet Florian knows it. Carol knows it. You know, the head cocks, the eyelids expand, the ears contract, and he looks at you like, you insignificant piece of dung. Moving right along. I'd like to introduce one of Stu's very close friends, Bob Mayer.
Thank you, Mike, and great idea to have this. I think that's a very sensitive, thoughtful, wonderful thing that I know both Don and Stu couldn't appreciate more. And also I've been asked by Mike to tell all the lawyers here that have been here now for 5 hours, it's okay to bill your largest client for this. In fact, you know, actually it's a wonderful law firm because Donna's and my son John worked for Gordon Rees and Susan Rose for a couple of years, billed 7,000 hours of work, and never ever went to law school. Stu and Donna and I met many years ago because Donna was absolutely the best women's softball pitcher in British Columbia, where both of us came from. That's the truth. She was in high school, fantastic, and she was great at university. And when we moved down here in the very early 1960s, the best thing that I could do for Donna was to take her to spring training. And we happened to go to an LA Dodgers spring training thing. And there was Stu on the mound, and he pitched 2 perfect innings. I mean, boom, boom, boom. Donna had never seen anything like that before. 18 pitches, and everybody was out. So at the end of the game, we went over, and there was Stu, and Donna said, "Could I please have your autograph?" And he said, "What's that?" He was so naive at that point, and he said, "Your signature." But you knew he was going to be a lawyer, so because he said, "Sure," and he wrote his name and said, "Now could I have yours, please?" But in truth, we met so long ago, I can hardly remember when we met, 31 years ago. We both joined the Guardsmen at the same time, and I guess we've introduced each other since then 100 times between I introducing you and you introducing me. We ended up being on the board together, and I was the president 1 year before Stu was. And I've known him never from a legal thing except, well, at least I should say he's never billed me for any legal advice. But you know, when I hear all of you speak about him, I guess that partners and friends are very much the same. You get to choose them. And they're probably about the only thing that you can choose in your life, are partners and friends. And, you know, you can let them go as well. And I don't know of a better friend. He's been a terrific person. I hope this doesn't sound like a eulogy.
I didn't know I was that sick.
Yeah. But when I hear everything that everyone said and kind of what I put, he's committed to excellence. He's intelligent. He's humorous. He's loyal. And he cares so damn much about everything he does. I mean, he's an absolute AAA type personality. But the thing that makes him so unusual is his caring for people. And some people don't know that.
but those of you who are his partners and those of us who are his friends know it in spades.
Hear, hear.
He cares about Florian, incredibly so. He cares about Tom and John. He cares about his parents. He cares about his partners. He cares about his co-workers. And he cares about his friends. And he really cares about it. And that is so unusual and refreshing. What can you say more than that about a person? I think that there's nothing one can really do more than to have the same principles as he does. And I'm very glad that I'm his friend, that he's my friend. Now, for the last 30 years, I've given him advice. And for the last 30 years, he's listened to me very carefully. And this was at Marine World and in the Guardsmen, Guggenheim and Gordon and Guggenheim, and here, and about some personal things. And I guess we talk a lot to each other about a bunch of things. And so he never has listened. He's listened, but he's never taken any of it. So I thought tonight that perhaps he'd take somebody else's advice. And this is the truth. These excerpts are verbatim from Kurt Vonnegut's commencement address to MIT just a couple of weeks ago. And he made about 30 different comments. He said, "Ladies and gentlemen of the class of '98. And the first thing he said, and I give you this advice, I picked 5 of them out, which I thought were very appropriate to Stu. First of all, wear sunscreen. Secondly, get plenty of calcium. Be kind to your knees. You'll miss them when they're gone."
They're already gone.
About number 18 was, enjoy your body. Use it every way you can. Don't be afraid of it or what other people think of it. It's the greatest instrument you'll ever have. The next one I thought was that describes him very well. And please take this advice. Understand that friends come and go, but with a precious few, you should hold on. Work hard to bridge the gap in geography and lifestyle, because the older you get, the more you need the people who knew you when you were young.
Hear, hear.
And the last one is, but most important of all, trust me, use a sunscreen. All your friends, and I'm sure for your partners, we all love this one. You're terrific. Cheers.
Okay, our last speaker is one of my dear friends, Bill Peters. We lived together in San Mateo. We actually had a house about a block and a half from each other. Our daughters were born very close to each other, and we're best friends. And he's someone who I seek advice and counsel from when I need advice, just as Stu and Don have done with each other. So without further ado, Bill Peters.
Actually, what Mike didn't tell you is I lived in an apartment in San Mateo. He actually moved into it later, but I think you got kicked out. Anyway, what I'd like to tell you is I'll be quick because I know it's late, but I figure I'm going to tell you enough lies later on that I'm not going to start with that one. When I was asked to talk about Stu and Don, I started to think about it, and I realized, I think I kind of showed the success that they had because I was one of the first attorneys that didn't work for Stu or Don. And during this time I've had a lot of interaction with them, but I really haven't worked on cases with them. And the thing that's been very important to me is, and I think what's been the strength of Gordon is the accessibility of Stu and Don. Even though I didn't work with them, their doors were always open. I was always able to talk with them. I was always just able to seek their advice. And, I can remember walking in at 7:30 in the morning, and going in and having very frank discussions with Stu, and we have very open. I feel I can be very honest with him. Though I got to admit, Stu, I really don't like the Dodgers.
I thought you were a Dodger fan.
But
all these years.
All these years.
So we would have these discussions, and it was very good. And after I get done with Stu, I walk by Don's office. Of course, he wouldn't be there then. I wouldn't be able to talk to him then. But Don and I, we seem to have the coffee schedule down, and we run into each other a lot in the coffee room. And, I learned a lot about advocacy skills with talking with Don, because his explanation to me of why Bobby Knight was such a great person and such a great basketball coach just really convinced me that anybody could take a position and wholeheartedly endorse it. And I really appreciate the lessons that he gave me in that regard. So I really think that their abilities to talk with everybody in the firm, to be open with everybody and to give advice has been really great, and it's really built what I think is just a wonderful law firm. But I would like to kind of end on a different note, and it's probably a little unusual. I'd like to bring up a little criticism I have of Stu and Don. And that is, you guys did such a damn good job that you really left us unprepared. I mean, you guys ran this firm so well, and Mike's really working hard, and I appreciate the effort, but I don't think any of us really realized the amount of work that was entailed, and the effort and foresight, and everything that you put into this firm to make it great. And I'd really like to thank you. Thank you.
Well, I think it's time. We want the big guy.
Come on. Bring on the big guy. Big guy.
We want Rees. We want Rees.
According to my watch, it's now 11:15, and I think we started at 5 in the afternoon. But there's really nothing that I can say that would equal what has gone on here tonight. I mean, it's very touching, moving. I was wondering why I was coming here tonight myself. Other people were wondering why they were coming here, because I did it all been a secret for Stu and myself, but I'm not going to keep everybody here much longer. There's nothing I can say. I mean, it's just I was impressed with not only the what was said, but the fact that I thought everybody was very articulate. I thought, gee, what a bunch of articulate people that are up there talking. How could I ever equal what they're saying? I appreciate it. Stu and I have been together a long time. I was just thinking about this earlier tonight, about 30 years, something like that. And it's been a great partnership. It's been a great firm. All of you that are here have done fantastic things for the firm. I sort of feel a little bit for the people that maybe are kind of outsiders that aren't part of the Gordon and Rees family that have had to sit here during this entire time. Wake up,
The longest night of our lives.
Where's Andre? One of my friends came in from New York. It's like way past 2 a.m. for him. Thanks for coming. Thanks for being here. Thanks for being my partners. Thanks for being my friends. Thanks for being my neighbors. Thanks for being my wife. She's the one that perhaps endured the most. But I'm sure I'll think of a lot of better things to say on the way home. I'll write all of you a note.
Email.
speaker left.
Patience! The little guy.
All right, patience.
Never do that to me.
Tell us the whole
As reluctant as he is to engage in public speaking, Stu has agreed to come up and say a few modest words.
I think we ought to have a bathroom break.
Exactly.
Super.
3 minutes. Where's the egg timer?
Well, unaccustomed as I am to talking to my closest friends and partners and members of our firm,
Friends of
everybody,
friends.
it's such a special night for us. It's absolutely just a shock. Don and I were driving from the office to my house where we were going to change, and we're wondering what in the world we're going to, because we were going to a party that our dear wives got us involved in. We walked into this room, and it's just absolutely shocking to see so many close friends and people that we care about, and just a wonderful moment. And I wish I had the time to tell a story about everybody in this room, because I know more stories about everybody in this room than anyone has even come close to telling so far.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Starting with Kevin Harrington. Kevin Harrington, who was a dear, sweet doctor who on the way back...
That's enough.
One of my biggest medical malpractice victories that I've ever had in Napa when we were driving back, and I had this flat tire, and he was the expert who carried the day for me. He also had the chance to change the flat tire. Because he was just on retainer. And that wasn't the only time.
What an expert is all about.
Then you also helped my car when Florian and I were going up to have dinner with you and Peggy, and we dropped the muffler and you had to fix the muffler. Proving once more what friends are all about.
All orthopedics.
As far as orthopedics, they've been a little weak. Having just had 2 cortisone shots from Kevin on Monday before going to Philadelphia and being able to walk with one leg afterwards, I'm very appreciative. But this is a great night for Don and me. Don, who came to Fields, McBride, Fields, Rees and McBride with me 30 years ago, and you know, he had the old Stanford red, and I had the old Cal blue and everything. We were so different because, as you all know, he was the intelligent one of the two. And I'm going all out, all over the place, energy, hoping something fits. And then we decided to start our own firm, and Ron Fields said to Don, "You're making the biggest mistake of your life. It'll never last because Stu's going to run all over the place, and you'll never be able to work together." And I was in the bathtub actually when Don called me to tell me that Ron Fields had told him that. And as I was sitting in the bathtub, I said, "No matter whatever happens in life, Don and I are going to succeed," which is really true. And that was 1974.
He pulled the plug.
We have had this great relationship ever since. I love Don Rees more than I could love my brother or anyone else. I mean, I can't tell you how much Don Rees means to me. I mean, he's sort of a guiding light for me, because what's ever happened to me over all these years, I've always known that if I could go to Don and have him help me out in any way with any problems that I have, Don will always help me. And there's never been ever a time when he hasn't been there to help me every minute that I've ever needed any help. And I'm sure that those of you in the room with us who know Don, who have had that same experience, have shared the same opportunities and the same benefits of knowing Don. He's just a wonderful man, and I am so
proud that I've been able to be a partner with Don. And I just thank you. Also, Marilyn, you are just a superstar. You're an absolute superstar to just stick with us all the way and support us and always be the great person to give us all the energy and just you're just wonderful, wonderful.
Queen of the minibar.
The queen of the minibar. I mean, this firm would never exist if it were not for all the energy that Marilyn has, entertaining at every party, making everybody happy, always smiling, always being just the bright, happy, cheery person. You are just a fabulous lady. We're so lucky. I've had some really special ladies in my life, very, very special ladies, and you know, I was sort of just working hard, doing my own thing, probably spending too much time on work and not enough time on my family, and maybe there was a reason for that during the first years of Gordon Rees and my life of doing what I was doing in the legal profession, but I really think that everything turned around just so much better for me in my life and everything that I've cared about when I met Florian, just the absolute star of my life, who's the best person I've ever met and the person I love with all my love, who's been so supportive, who no matter what, long days, short nights, long trips, times away from home, always smiling, always there for me, always supportive and making me feel good about every single thing that I've done. I love you, Florian, and thanks for being there always with me. And I can't tell you how wonderful it is to have Patience Porter in your life.
Here, here.
The same feelings about Patience. I mean, she is the nicest, cheeriest, happiest, loveliest person that anyone could ever know. And being my secretary, her name was not Patience when she came to work. Her name was Jane. And it took her about 2 or 3 years. And it was, Jane, you either have patience or you're never going to make it here. So she changed her name to Patience. And I'll tell you, she is a great lady. And I know that there's never been anyone who has ever worked for Gordon Rees who hasn't said that Patience Porter is not the best secretary and nicest lady they have ever met. Patience, I love you. Work with us and help us and look after me, and another great lady, and I can't thank you enough, Carol, for making all this work, because as you know, we need a lot of us to make the wheels of progress work along 20 North or whatever we call it. Thank you. From day one, when we were starting to figure out how to work this firm out, not having a clue financially, we went to our great friend Don Crone, who said, please make this work. And Don gave us all the tips that Don Rees and I needed, and we did a whole lot of quick stuff and everything. And we're not going to talk about that right now. But
Residual.
Residuals, I tell you, it was not just the Rice-Aroni Act. Don, thanks for always being with us. From day one, you have been our financial guide, leader, and helper, and everything else. You've done a lot of other stuff. We're not going to talk about that right now. But thanks for all your friendship and all your care and just everything you've done to guide us financially into the 21st century. We've done extremely well financially and as a firm and everything else. We could have never done it without you. Thank you very much. And it's great having all my best friends around here. Scott Hoops, who didn't get to say anything, is doing his best to keep awake. Being this great stockbroker he is, who got to work this morning at 6 o'clock in the morning, working hard, and then coming here and being here, and Bob Meyer and Jim Tannenbaum, Bob Goldsmith, my great campmate from Bohemian Grove, is going to be doing all this stuff tomorrow, busily, and great friend Kevin Harrington. It's so.
What about me?
No, forget about Maury. Actually, forget about Maury, who just married Jesse only months ago. Jesse, who has looked after Bolt Hall in our class of Bolt, and we've had the most fun times together in Hawaii and everything. Maury, who wanted to say a whole lot tonight, and we'll say whatever it is later in the bar. Night goes on, Carolyn's playing the piano and everybody's singing. Maury will carry on. Thank you all for being here and supporting us. And what's really mostly important, and I can't tell you enough how everything you want to do in life, I think you can do if you just have a positive attitude and you just keep moving toward what you want to accomplish, no matter what it is. And there's no lawyer at GNR sitting in this room who doesn't feel the same way that I do and Don does. We work hard, we have a great time together, and whatever it is, we make it work. And there's no obstacle that we can't overcome. And that's what makes the difference to the lawyers at GNR than other